Welcome to Mom Boss Central. I'm your host, Alexia Hoffman. This podcast is where entrepreneurial moms like you and me come together for real and raw conversations filled with practical tips, genuine stories, and a whole lot of girl power. But it's not just about listening, it's about building a community. If you haven't already, make sure to join at mombosscentral.com. So whether you're sipping on a cup of coffee, pouring yourself a glass of wine, or tuning in on the go, get ready to join the conversation and become part of our supportive Mom Boss Central community. All right, I'm here with Mary Laske. Hi, Mary. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Alexia.
Can you please give our listeners a quick introduction about who you are as both a mom and a business owner?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So I am a mom of two girls. My girls are 2 and 4 years old, and I'm a dog mom too. I have a German Shepherd named Otis. He kind of brings the male balance to the household with my husband because my husband very quickly got outnumbered.
Oh yeah, I know that all too well.
Yeah. And I grew my business, which is I have a email marketing agency, and I also do marketing and sales consulting and business consulting. I started my business during COVID when our household lost all of its income.
Oh my gosh.
And my husband travels for a living. And so when COVID happened, his job got shut down for a few years. And yeah, so my daughter she turned 1 during COVID. So she was probably like 8 months old when I had to go into survival mode and figure out what we were going to do and what I could do from home while taking care of her. And I found this whole online entrepreneurial world that I had no idea existed.
Yeah.
And the rest is history. And then we had my other daughter, 2 years ago. And so much like you have a little one on your chest right now, my youngest was on my chest, breastfeeding during client calls or coaching calls. And, everybody just got used to it. And, I selected clients who could get on board with that, lifestyle because I didn't have a choice. That was my life.
Definitely, yeah. Well, that is so crazy how it came out of necessity during COVID. Did you do anything entrepreneurial before ever?
I did. So I've been a Reiki master teacher and breathwork and meditation facilitator for about 15 years.
Okay.
And we used to live in Nashville. We live in Ohio again now, which is where my husband and I were both born.
Oh, wow.
But when we lived in Nashville, I had a Reiki business down there and facilitated meditations and group Reiki sessions and all kinds of things. But when we moved back here, I moved with a job to come back to Ohio. And I just didn't think to rebuild my business from scratch. And so I kind of let it go. And it's funny now, all these years later, we've been back in Ohio about 7 years, maybe 6 or 7 years. And now I'm teaching breathwork classes again. And all of that is starting to come out again as well. So it's really fun to see it all come full circle.
Yeah, that is so cool. So the reason I asked that is because I've found that so many entrepreneurs or moms, whatever order it was, that part of the identity is both the babies and the business. It's so rare where somebody said like, oh, I all of a sudden, for the first time ever became an entrepreneur. It feels like it's always been, a part of us and our identity at some point in our lives prior to having kids. And whether it comes back out after having kids or it came out before having kids, it's kind of something that's throughout our lives in one form or another. So what was that transition into motherhood like for you? What was your job status when you got pregnant, and then kind of growing your business with you said 8-month-old? What did that look like for you?
Yeah. So once again, the way that all happened was sort of by push as opposed to me pulling that into my life. Unless you believe in manifestation, and then I probably pulled it in, right? But so when I was pregnant, I had a full-time job. I was manager, like a district manager of a fitness studio. And I also coached group fitness classes there. Very busy. People say like the 9 to 5, but I pretty much had a 4 a.m. until 9 p.m. kind of
Oh my
lifestyle,
gosh. Yeah. That.
Yeah. And when I went on maternity leave, I actually got demoted from my job.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
yes, they brought someone in to replace me like a week before I went on maternity leave. And I was like, what's happening? And
Oh my
then
gosh.
and then when I was on maternity leave, and it was time to come back, they were like, you're going to be in a demoted position. And I said, well, I'm not coming back then. So
Yeah.
it was a structured choice that I had to make.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and fortunately, my husband had a good job at the time that we could afford for me to make that structured choice. Not all moms have that, the flexibility to do that. And so I'm
Yeah.
very grateful that I had that opportunity to stay home with her. And so the first like 8 months of her life, that's what I did. I was a full-time mom. And then, of course, I got the itch, I wanted something for myself again. I love working, especially in my own business. I love running a business. I love consulting clients. And so I had to find something for myself. And so kind of right around the time that I was starting to think about it, like it was just an idea, like I think
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready, is when COVID happened and we lost all of our household income.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. Wow.
yeah. And so it started out like I found a website that posted all kinds of flexible jobs. So flexible either because they're remote or flexible because the working hours are flexible. So it's sort of like the indeed.com of flex jobs. And I
Okay.
found a gig on there for $20 an hour doing everything under the sun for a functional medicine doctor in Maryland. And I was here in Ohio.
Okay.
And it was through that experience, I learned a lot about, online business and building an online program from from scratch. Um, a lot about email marketing and copywriting, all of this that I just had no idea there were so many people operating businesses this way, because the businesses I had worked with in the past, different jobs I had were all brick and mortar. And
Mm-hmm.
so this was really new, really exciting. And I just saw so much opportunity out there. And with the skills and the experience I had, I just knew that I could make an impact on other people's businesses and help them grow. And I was hooked.
Yeah, that is so cool. It's interesting to me that you said you were looking up flex jobs. Was that because of your new role as a mom? Is that what kind of led you to look down that path?
Yeah. So you mentioned, that you're a mom of three now. And so you learn things along the way.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that there were like these huge waiting lists for daycares.
Yeah.
So by the time she was here and I was like, okay, let's find a daycare,
Oh
it
no.
was like, okay, you can come, in about 9 months. And I also just really liked having her home. And
Mm-hmm.
because we lost our whole household income and we really needed to like build from scratch, it wasn't even an option for me to find, we didn't even have money for a daycare at the time.
Yeah.
We were just
Yeah.
trying to make ends meet at that point.
Yeah.
So I needed
Definitely.
something where she could be here with me. It could be a few hours a day on my own schedule, that I could be remote and take care of her while I was working for somebody. And that's
Definitely.
what started it. And then I thought, you know, there's so much opportunity and potential out there. And I'm a good writer. I know psychology. So sales and marketing comes really naturally to me. And
Mm-hmm.
so I decided to do my own thing.
That is so cool. So, speak a little bit to what you were kind of feeling and experiencing as you were adjusting to becoming a mom and also embarking on a new business venture. What was that season like for you, and what were some of the things that you experienced?
Yeah, it's funny because it was completely different between my two kids. And when I say that, you might think that I mean it was harder with my first daughter because first time mom, first time business owner, everything is new.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when in reality, in my situation, my second daughter, everything was harder in terms of
Okay.
motherhood and running a business. So let me
Okay.
explain. Um, so with my first daughter, you know, she had been home with me forever. We had a routine down. We knew what we were doing. She was the only one. And yeah, it was just like easy. We had a routine. I was working a couple hours a day for one person.
Mhm.
And my goal was, can I make enough money to find daycare for her a couple days a week? And then maybe I could take another client or expand, right? And so that's how we started. Like, get her into daycare a couple days a week. I reached that goal. And then it was like, okay, I want to go full time. You know, can we get, that's my next goal. So it was like, I had these little goals along the way. And from starting from zero with the business,
Mhm.
hitting those little milestones of growth was great.
Yeah.
By the time my second daughter came, I had an established business.
Mhm.
And so I had to incorporate a brand new baby plus a toddler
Mhm.
into a business that was already established and was not, you know, oh, I'm going to try to get my first client or try to reach this
Yeah.
income to hit the next goal. It was like, no, I have a floor now. There's a
Yeah.
floor, right?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
we can't, yeah, like we can't dip below here
Mhm.
in order to maintain and keep everything that we had going.
Yeah.
And I had a new baby. And I happened to close 2 full service email marketing clients right before I had her.
Oh,
They
wow.
both started with me September 1st and she was born September 11th.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so I took 36 hours of maternity leave with her.
Oh, yeah.
She was born on a Saturday. I left the hospital on Sunday, went back to work on Monday with these 2 brand new clients and this brand new baby.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. I do know about that season and it is crazy. Like looking back, it's like, oh my gosh, how did we survive it?
I know. And you know, like you just adjust, right?
Yep.
So here I am at my desk right now. I've got a big desk and my bookshelf and everything here, my platform for my laptop and my microphone. But when
Mhm.
she was a baby, I had this like makeshift desk that I pulled up to the couch.
Mhm.
And I sat on the couch, you know, for 8
Yep.
hours a day with my laptop just pulled up on this makeshift desk with a baby
Mhm.
strapped to my chest.
Oh yeah.
And you just live, you know, you
Yep.
just find a way.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
the funny thing is, or I guess it's not funny, it really affected me. Um, I had breastfeeding struggles with her that I did not experience the first time around.
Oh
And
yeah. Wow.
you think about everything I just shared with you, it was way
Mhm.
more stressful. My husband's job was back, so he was gone a
Oh my
lot.
gosh.
So it
Yeah.
was like me, 2 babies, we had 2 dogs at the time, and a full-time business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, my supply dropped. I didn't know it was dropping until she was 4 months old, and she had lost a pound, which if you know babies, like, that's a huge
Mhm.
deal. And so then it became very, like, panicky about how do I save this? How do we work back up? I'd never had to pump with my first daughter, so now I have to learn pumping
Oh,
and
yeah.
find support for that.
Yeah.
And just like this whole extra challenge on top of everything that was already challenging but manageable. And it's
Mhm.
like, what else can we add in here that's going to make it hard?
Yeah, seriously. And I mean, I know one of those things on its own, whether it be, like pumping, learning to pump, and dealing with the supply decrease, and dealing with a spouse that's traveling, and adjusting to having 2 children. I mean, all of those things, they're all speaking of. So sorry.
You're fine.
I was just saying how she's so fun. So all of those things on, their own would be so challenging. But then to experience all of them at once is just, I feel like, what happens as a business owner. It's like those seasons where everything's good and then a lot of things aren't all at once. So how can you overcome that? I mean, what what would you say is why maybe feels like they're in a similar season?
First of all, just like you are not alone. It's not because you're not good at this or you're doing it wrong or there's something wrong
Yes.
with you. Like
Mhm.
That's the most important thing because it feels so personal. It
Kind of.
feels like failing as a mom to not be able to breastfeed your kid. It feels like failing as a business owner if you can't do it all, you know? Oh, no, you're totally fine. So that would be my first thing is like, don't internalize it as that you're not good enough or a good mom or a good business owner or anything like that. Second thing I would say is find support and community. My mindset coach, Laura Catella, who is also a friend of mine and also a client of mine, has a community that just really helped me rebuild my confidence because what happened with the breastfeeding struggles in my personal life affected my confidence everywhere else. And
Mm.
so even though nothing changed about my competence or my skill
Mhm.
level in my business, I lost confidence in
Yeah.
how good I was at what I do, right?
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
so she gave me a lot of tools for like finding some of that, just being aware of
Mhm.
it, reassigning the meaning or not internalizing it as, you know, what I just shared, like it is not something internal. It's nothing about you. It's just an experience.
Yeah.
And really helped me rebuild my confidence in my life and in my
Yeah.
business. And so
Yeah.
finding community and support, I think, is huge. And, you know, I found a breastfeeding support group, right? So,
Yeah.
like, I'm always looking for those resources, whether it's personal or professional. Where can I find support? Where can I not feel alone? I have a breathwork membership for entrepreneurs, and I feel like I kind of developed that for people like me who need
Mhm.
support while they're growing their business, right? Because
Yeah.
there's just challenges that you run into that you just need somewhere that you don't feel alone, you know?
Definitely. Yeah. I
Um,
think what you were saying about how when you're struggling in one category, it can go into other categories of our lives. So, for example,
absolutely.
breastfeeding, I mean, that is something that is so emotional. So, it's so hard to describe, I feel. Just everything that comes with it for, someone who before I had breastfed, to hear people talk about breastfeeding versus actually once I've gone through that journey. I mean, with my twins, I was able
Oh,
to
your
breastfeed them
twins.
for 6 months. And so that was, something that was like, I didn't have expectations, but then once I was in it to stop for my mental health and my
Mm,
supply also, it's a struggle and it does have such an impact on, I feel like so much more. It's not just about breastfeeding. For me, it wasn't just about breastfeeding. It wasn't just about feeding my child. It became, like you said, it can come into identity struggles or
mhm.
competence issues and feeling like, okay, now I'm struggling with this and I'm feeling less confident in who I am as not only a mom, but a business owner and a wife. And it doesn't always jump out in, it wasn't easy for me to connect those dots
Mm,
necessarily to say, oh, I'm struggling with breastfeeding. So that's why I'm feeling like this way in my business or in my marriage. But it's so true. And I think that's so
yeah,
important for maybe any moms that are feeling that way. If they're struggling with that, it could be connected to why you're struggling with other things and to be kind of
absolutely.
aware so you can overcome that and identify that's not the truth. That is, a lie that you might be telling yourself or, that you haven't been able to acknowledge. So hopefully that helps someone listening if they're struggling in, one department to really evaluate where those other struggles are stemming from because maybe it's tied to something. If you feel like you're struggling in a lot of areas, maybe it's just one thing that you need to kind of intentionally reaffirm yourself on instead of believing that you're struggling in all these different categories.
Mm, so, so good. And I think that's why these kind of conversations and like your podcast in general is so important because I remember telling Laura at the time, like, I feel embarrassed
Mhm.
and I don't want people to know that I'm struggling because
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be a strong,
Ugh.
confident, competent business owner. And
Yes.
it's
Oh my
like,
gosh.
so I didn't even want to share my struggles publicly.
Yeah.
I didn't want people to know that that was happening because then you also don't want them to think, oh, she's distracted with
Yes.
motherhood.
Too
right?
busy. Yeah, has too
Yeah,
much
too
going
busy.
on. Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh.
Priorities are not in the right place, and even if
Mhm.
people don't say that,
Dun,
it happens. The judgment is there, right? So
oh,
like,
yeah.
I think even just having these conversations and giving women and moms who own businesses a place to share some of that and feel not alone if they're going through it is
Yeah.
really important. And we just need to be having more of these conversations openly. It's easy for me to say that on the other side, right? But now looking
Yes.
at the women who will go or are going through something similar to what I went through, I
Mhm.
I feel like I'm now an advocate on the other side. Like we have to talk about it. We have to be
Yes.
safe with each other. You know what I mean? Um,
100%. Yeah.
yeah.
I feel like that is why where Mom Law Central came from, that community need. Because I had my twins, had run my business for a few years before, and I waited to have kids because I wanted to be quote unquote established with my business. And, coming into it, I knew things would shift, but the the support that I received as a new mom and the support I received as a business owner almost contradicted each other. I felt like
Mm.
there were these great communities from both, but there wasn't a community that I had found that could really speak to that season I was in, of, like you had said so perfectly, of not wanting to share my struggles because I didn't want to take away from who I was as a business owner. But that is so important because there's all these components that we're dealing with as moms and as business owners. They're not exclusive to one another, and we're all dealing with them in some capacity, but we're not all talking about them, which can make it feel so isolating. And just especially with, postpartum season, it can feel so daunting of like, how do I get through that? So, for you now having your two daughters and your second daughter being 2 years old, how did you manage to get through? I mean, I know you said community, but where are you now? If you can give someone, I mean, who's in that season some hope, where are you now, and what does your kind of day to day look like? How are you either balancing or integrating work and motherhood?
Oh, I love this question. So first of all, I'll just share too, when I was in the depths of it, it looked like there was no balance.
Mm-hmm.
I just was doing what I needed to do to survive.
Yeah.
Um, Survive as a mom, survive as a woman, survive as a business owner. I was in survival.
Yeah.
And so I was able to pump for her until she was 13 months old, but that meant she had to travel with me
Mm,
if I went to conferences because I couldn't make more than enough. I made
mm,
just enough.
yeah. Yeah.
So that means like taking a nanny to conferences with me,
Mm-hmm.
paying extra money for another hotel room.
Mm.
On one trip I went on, I had to bring both my kids and a nanny because my husband
My
was also
gosh.
traveling.
Wow. That is amazing.
Um, Reading up on and buying everything I needed to bring all of my pump parts and clean a pump on a plane
Oh my
while I'm
gosh.
sitting next to like pump while I'm sitting next to somebody and then clean all the parts and put it all away and store the milk somewhere cold. Like
Oh my gosh. That could
there
be a whole
was
episode on its own, I bet.
I know. So it was a season, okay?
Yeah.
And it was not fun and it was not balanced and I was exhausted and I just got through.
Yes.
Here I am on the other side of that. And like I said, I rebuilt my confidence. Some people have commented lately that like they're loving my social media content. I'm like, well, that's just because this is just who I am. And I was not myself for so long, and like you're
Yeah.
seeing me come out again. So it's
Yes.
also okay to have a season where you're not showing everybody how great life is, right? Like,
Yes. Oh my
and you
gosh.
can
So
share
important.
yeah, and you can share some of the vulnerability or you don't have to. I also want to make clear that like you don't
Yeah.
have to document the struggle while you're going through it. I talk a lot
Hmm.
about it now that it's in the past
Yeah.
to try and help other women who might be going through it, just so that they know that they're not alone, but you don't have to share.
Yeah.
And then as far as my business, this is how really I created my boutique agency. So I was starting to get clients on a waiting list. And I went to my mentor and I'm like, I want to make more money. I want to serve more clients, but I have people on a waiting list because I can't do it all. And he was like, you need to hire somebody who can help you with this. And so that's really where my team started to grow. I have an amazing VA. I have a team of email copywriters and list managers who help me on the deliverables side. I am mostly the strategy and the brain behind the method that we're using in my agency to serve our clients. And there are pros and cons to that too, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
pros are like, I really do have balance now. And I don't work after 4 p.m. unless I want to.
Yeah.
And I don't work on the weekends unless it's during a 2-hour nap and I want to.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
that balance is priceless. The cons are, or one of the main cons, and I just said that time and that balance and that those boundaries are priceless. And at one point, I lost a client who they just mismanaged their money and they laid off the entire team with 6 days notice. And I had this team who I did not lay off. So there were 2 months that I was barely making enough to pay my bills for 2 months, so that I could maintain my team. And so that's where some of this balance comes in. And that was a good learning lesson for me too, and so now I have like an emergency fund, which I didn't used to have, which is kind of embarrassing to admit, but it's just how it is. It's just what it
learn
is.
some way. So at least you learned, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, but it was important to me that, I had this team and I wasn't going to take a client away from them just because one got taken from me, so like, yes, building the team has really helped. And I love this model. And also when you start to hire a team, it means that you're making a commitment, right? Like it's a responsibility. It's not just, oh, this is going to make my life easier. Like they have to be a good fit with my clients. They have to be in it for the long term, and I have to be dedicated to supporting them and making new business for them, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think something that you just said that was so powerful is that you were in the season and there was no balance and you were just getting through. And now you have that balance and you made it through. And I think that's so important for people to hear because it's so easy to say, like, oh, I made it my business or with my kids. But to say that you feel balanced now, I think is such an accomplishment because I think that there's so many times I hear, I speak to moms of all ages and stages, and that balance may never be prevalent. I mean, they might have, kids in their 20s and they still don't necessarily feel balanced per se. So I think that the fact that you have kind of worked so hard at that and to have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old and to feel that balance is achievable is so inspiring to people. That it is possible with 2 young kids and a business and managing employees that you can feel there's a balance and you can set boundaries that make you feel like you have space and time to say no to the things that you don't want to do or things that need to wait until work hours. So I think that is just so powerful and so inspiring to hear. So thank you so much for sharing that. Do you
Thank
feel like
you.
there was, any specific tips for somebody with young kids trying to achieve that balance that you could share, whether it be about setting boundaries, managing employees or time, what would that advice look like?
I think probably the thing that comes to mind is just not comparing yourself to other people.
So
I
good.
am and I'm in a very male dominated industry. Marketing and email marketing in particular, very male dominated. My mentors are males, right? And like other folks in the masterminds with me are men. And a lot of them are young men in their 20s with no family, no mortgage, no blah, 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 right? Like, and so I used to compare myself a lot to them. And I used to think things like, I should have started younger, or I should have started before I had kids, or I should have, all of this, or even just being angry that, well, I can't do what they do. I can never do what they do because I don't have, some of them work 16-hour days, right? And like, that is just never going to be a reality for me. And
Yeah.
so a lot of it was, and if I could share this advice with other moms going through it, is like, if you're comparing yourself to anybody else who's doing what you do, stop. Everybody's life circumstances are different. And I'm not saying, like, some of those men, I'm sure, wish they had some of what I have, right?
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
it's not just their life is great and I wish mine could be like that.
Mm-hmm.
We all have, so like, there's another thing, right? Is just being grateful for what you have and not comparing to others. I think that's the main thing. I think I thought of something else and now I can't remember what I was going to say. But that's the biggest thing, is just not comparing to other people.
Yeah, that's so good. Something that you said in that was some of them work 16 hours days, and that wasn't an option for you.
Yeah.
Um, Talk about how you kind of came to that conclusion, because there are moms that struggle with overwork and saying no to kind of pressures of career, work pressures. How did you say no to that? How did you come to terms with the fact you weren't going to be working the same hours as some of the other people that you experience in your industry?
I would like to say that it's all because I'm just super introspective and I realized it, and so great. I think the fact that my milk supply dropped, because there wasn't enough balance, there wasn't enough self-care, there wasn't enough downtime. It was
Yeah.
very, very hustle, hustle, go, go, go. That
Mm-hmm.
was a good indicator. Even in as recent as October of last year, I had an emergency gallbladder surgery and had
Oh
my
my
gallbladder
gosh.
removed.
Wow.
And I'm working with a traditional Chinese medicine expert who is helping me really like reset the organs in my body, because I had no idea how off everything was.
Yeah.
And she shared a philosophy with me and I'm like, wow, I've known that for so long, but like just been shoving it down,
Yeah.
is that like, hustle culture is toxic. It is especially toxic for women, and it is
Yeah.
killing women.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
it is killing women. And so becoming more aware of that, and really, I feel like gallbladder surgery is so common
Mhm.
that at first I didn't even think about it as seriously as I do now.
Yeah.
And now I think, like, my kids are so young. I have to do whatever it takes. Like, if we're going to hustle, I'm going to
Yeah.
hustle for my health, like,
Yeah. Oh
I'm going
yeah.
to
I love
hustle for
that.
my kids. I'm going to
I
hustle for
love
the
that.
time. Yeah.
So
Like, and the other thing is, like, I just have been proven time and again that
yeah.
even when I hustle, I don't
Mhm.
always get my way.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of times we're conditioned to hustle and push through and go because we think it's going to get us what we want.
Yeah.
And now I've just been proven wrong so many times in that I'm like, that is just not the way. It's not the way. And leaning into my feminine energy of receive and nurture, which
So
is
good.
very much not been the way I have lived. I've lived very masculine, push, drive, go,
Mhm.
tough, compete.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm kind of also in this just playful chapter of my life where I'm like leaning into the feminine, and it feels amazing and it is
Yeah.
rewarding. And I'm like, man, I wish I knew this sooner.
Yeah, that is so good, Mary. Oh my gosh, I love that. I just love that you said hustle for your health, hustle for your kids, and that when you hustle for business, you don't always get what you want. That is just so powerful. So I'm
Yeah.
so grateful that we had this conversation. I think we touched on so much of just what working women and moms need to hear in this, season, especially for those moms struggling through that newborn season and trying to juggle it all. I just think that you spoke to so much of the struggle that does happen and is not spoken about, and how it can really
Mm.
feel like it's overtaking your life, you know? But really, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, take it one day at a time. You're going to get through it. You're not alone in this. I just am so grateful for your vulnerability in sharing that, and also in kind of speaking tangible tips for those women that are in that tough season. So thank you so much. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you, speak a little bit about your socials or any content you have that you want, people to know about?
Yeah, thank you so much. And I loved this conversation too. And like I said, I just hope that we can have more of these open conversations because it's so important that
Oh,
women know
yeah.
that they're not alone in
Yeah.
this. I'm on social media. I think all of my social media channels are Mary Lasky Bell is how you can find me. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And I usually just say, shoot me a message if you're going to follow me or send me a request because I don't know who, I get like a lot of requests just being in internet marketing, and I don't
Mm.
always know how people found me or know me, and I don't always accept unless I know where they came from. So tell me that you found me on Alexia's podcast and like say hi.
Yeah.
I always think it's funny when people like send a friend request and then they just don't say
Yeah.
anything. So
Yeah.
yeah, let's meet, introduce yourself, and thank you for listening and tuning in and
Yeah.
following me if that's what you want to do.
Yeah. Send Mary a message. Tell her that you came from the Mom Boss Central community and start a conversation with her because she's amazing. And I'm sure she can give you guys such valuable and tangible tips for whatever season that you guys are in. So thank you, Mary. We are so grateful to have you on the podcast, and we wish you,
Thank
your
you.
business, and your kids all good health and lots of a good balance and continued success.
Thank you so much. And same to you with that little one.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Mom Boss Central. I hope you found inspiration, encouragement, and maybe even a few new strategies to rock your mom boss journey. Remember, you're not alone. We're all in this together. And don't forget to share the love with your fellow mom bosses. Make sure to join the community at mombosscentral.com. It's completely free and a space to connect with like-minded women. All you have to do is sign up and start connecting. Until next time, keep pursuing your passions and living authentically. We're so happy to have you as part of the Mom Boss Central community.